today is Althea Williams. She is the founder of SheVetsIt. She is an Army veteran. SheVetsIt is a podcast where she highlights women veterans. Welcome, Althea.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
Glad to have you. How are you?
I'm doing fine, doing fine.
Now,
Just
tell
staying
us
warm out here.
what inspired you to start SheVetsIt.
Yes, I started She Vets It because it was actually started from a personal necessity. I was getting out the military. Uh, After almost 8 years, I experienced a traumatic brain injury. And because of that, I knew getting out, I needed to connect with some friends or people that I knew that could relate to the military experience. I knew that my civilian friends may not necessarily have that experience of losing battle buddies, experiencing visible wounds and things like that. So I knew that there was a need for me to find my tribe, find a community. So I started She Vets It, an online community.
Mhm. Now, tell us a little bit about your military experience. Now, when did you join is it the U.S. Army, correct?
Yes, I joined the military of the Army at the age of 39. And I always wanted to join because we were like 39. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I always wanted to join the military. And what happened was it was during the recession. And I moved my family to Dallas, and the recession happened. But what happened is when I was in college, I wanted to join like out of high school. And then I went to college, and it was always something that kept coming up that I couldn't join. And so during the recession, I met someone at the coffee shop, and they said, "Hey, have you thought about the military?" And I was like, "Yeah, I always wanted to join the military, but I'm too old now to join." And they said, "Well, right now you can join at 42." And I was like, "What?" So I said, "Let me go check it out." So I went to the recruiter's office, and but then I knew joining the military wasn't just that easy, where you just join and nothing else. You just make a decision to go, because I know once you get in, you can't just get out like that. So I said, I'm going to pray about it. So I prayed about it. I went to church and I said, okay, Lord, give me a confirmation. So that Sunday, the pastor of all Sundays, never seen anything military themed. I've never heard him talk about military, never seen a guest. And that particular Sunday, there was a guest, and it was a Navy SEAL chaplain. The whole stage was military themed, and the teleprompter was a video of the Army coming to pick up a family. And that Monday was the day I was supposed to make a decision to sign. And so that was my sign, was to join the military then.
Wow, that's such an inspirational story. Um, the next Monday after that, you actually joined?
Yes, because I needed a confirmation, because I was like, you just don't join the military, and it's a civilian job. You can, sign the papers, be there Monday, and if you don't like the job, you can say, hey, this is not a good fit for me. That's the military don't work like that. So I'm like, okay. I said, I need a confirmation. And so that was pretty much my confirmation to join. So I always share, when I share my story, joining the military, I feel like it has been a spiritual journey. And that led me to She Vets It. And I always say She Vets It is not a business venture. I feel like it's a ministry for me. I think that everything I've gone through from my early years of starting work to the time I was in the military prepared me for where I'm at today.
So what challenge do you think you faced differently joining at 39 versus a young girl right out of high school?
Ooh, good question. I think one of the challenges is when you're younger, your body's a little more fit and, and durable. When you join at 39, you're already 39 years old. And if you didn't have a job that was primarily physical, because when you're a civilian, they're more tapping into your intellect, your ability to think, and things like that. But I didn't have a job that necessarily required me to ruck march and be physical, but also be able to use my mind as well. So it was physically more physically challenging than maybe having a civilian job. But here's the advantage that I did have was, I had a strong sense of identity, a strong sense of faith, whereas someone that's coming out of high school is still haven't yet formed or understand who they are. They're still trying to grow into who they are. Well, I had the opportunity to see, I had the opportunity to be on both sides. I had the opportunity to see what it's like to be in the military, but I also know what it's like to be on the other side with 20 plus years as a civilian.
Okay. So part of the reason you started SheVetsIt was to build community. So what did that mean to you?
Well, I would have to start initially. I had no idea that I was going to do SheVetsIt. The thing is, when I ended up getting the traumatic brain injury and getting out and having to medically retire, I knew that I needed to find a new group of friends. When I was living in the DC area, I was like, wow, I'm going to need to find people that I can connect with. And so I knew the power of community, when you connect with friends, once a week, maybe go to the movies. I was just thinking of like go to the movies, go to lunch. I wasn't thinking about building a community, maybe a small group of friends that I was able to connect with. And a lot of times I know the power of community is whether it's two people or 100 people, um, you know, that accountability where you both check on each other, see if everyone's okay. And so I think that was very helpful, but it grew into something bigger because not only did I start a meetup group to just do like the movies and everything, but what happened is the day that I received my DD 214, a media consultant for an actor that was in Hollywood contacted me and said, "Hey, we see you have a meetup group, and we would love to invite your group of friends out to a screening at ABC. We're having this event." And so I'm like, "Okay." And it was the same day that I received my D 214. And I'm thinking, God, what are you trying to tell me? So then I ended up just doing that, and then that led me to the clubhouse during the pandemic. You know, I know everyone was isolated. We was online, and then before I knew it, it just grew into something bigger than I could imagine. And women veterans, we were staying up to like 10 midnight at night, women from all over the United States jumping on the Clubhouse app, having conversations. And I was learning about the different things that people were doing. Like, oh my gosh, you're a writer. Oh, you're doing this, or you are uh, a psychologist, and you're a Marine veteran, and you're, whatever the case. There, I just saw some wonderful women veterans that I thought, well, we're on here every day. Let me just start highlighting individuals. So I just start highlighting individuals and then start learning their story and their journey, because I thought it was just so important for women veterans to know that transition. Like, what was your transition like, and what got you from transitioning out the military to finding your new purpose? And that was a thing. A lot of times veterans get lost in finding their purpose after the uniform. And that is what I wanted to share the stories and tap into. What led you to your purpose? Because we're all going to have different challenges, transitioning, because you've been in the military for a certain amount of time. And so now you're like trying to figure out, what do I do now? So that's normal. So I wanted to capture that and inspire others.
And I think that's how me and you met, because I also have a traumatic brain injury as a U.S. Navy vet. And you actually did an event that we had. It was a women's event at the VA in Los Angeles.
Yes, you invited me out, and I always like to share about with a traumatic brain injury, because sometimes people may lump us all together.
Right.
Everyone has different may have been injured differently and may have different effects and how it may impact one from another, like how your impact from your injury is different from maybe someone else. Someone may not be able to really talk, or may be able to function differently. And those invisible wounds, that is something that I started talking about too. I met a young lady. She has an organization in incredible, where she helps veterans who have experienced traumatic brain injury. And I was so impressed, like, oh my gosh, you're doing that. And I was still trying to figure out how this new me and what that looked like, because I wasn't used to being in a space where I had to ask people for help for different things, and I didn't understand what my limitations were.
Right.
you know
Even a mild TBI can cause significant events. I mean, so they range, like you said, there's no one little square.
Mhm.
It's always interesting to talk to other people who have experienced that transition. I mean, it took me 10 years for that
Mhm.
transition. It may take someone else a year, but
Mhm.
everything that you're doing with She Vets is amazing. Um, do you think you can share any particular story of a woman in your community who found healing and strength and growth through She Vets It?
Oh wow, there's a number of stories. I would say, well, I'll leave mine to the end, but I have had women who have shared with me, like, oh, yeah, that I've met online, and they were from Atlanta, and they're like, oh, yeah, we do events together. We're collaborating now. We met on SheVetsIt platform on Clubhouse. Or someone that's in Mississippi, they're like, oh, yeah, the time you had the room on this, now me and such, we work together, or we're friends now. So I often see a lot of that. And then I've had people inbox me and tell me, oh my gosh, Althea, thank you so much for, connecting with me. And, or I'll have someone who'll post something and they'll tag me and they're like, hey, if you want to support She Vets It, this lady is doing the work. And I remember that particular video, I was like, I don't know if I'm just wasting my time or what. And then someone posted that, hey, she vets it. She is doing the work. And so those are things, when I get people that message me and say how they've been inspired by what I'm doing. Or a woman actually in LA, she and her son was living in a car, and she reached out to me. And she was stuck out there. She's supposed to get back to Florida, so she was homeless. And so we were on the phone, and I tried to connect her with some of the resources, and I was able to connect her with some resources where connection, where she was able to, they kind of moved some things around to make sure that her and her son were taken care of. So although that's not what I do per se, but I connect people. But I have a community where I know of different organizations that I try to stay in the know, so that I can share that information. Like now in California, there's fires. So there's a list of organizations that have shelters and things like that. So I got that information and I posted on my page for those that live in the Pasadena, Palisade area, and so forth. So just my thing is being that connector, and information I know is passing along.
Mhm. What do you think some of the most significant challenges women face?
I would say some of the things, several things that pop into my head is that women veterans make the fastest segment of the homeless population. And so, with that, some of those challenges, half of those are minority women. And then, not only that, but half of those are single moms. And so, a lot of times, and one is too many. So, it doesn't matter what their background is, one is too many. I would say the financial stability, uh, their ability as they're transitioning out the military, if they're a single mom, and if they're out of the military because of their family care plan. If they don't have a family care plan and they're out, having their ability to be able to transition into something more stable for them and their child. But one thing that I like to share about that is that a lot of times the children get lost too, because when children, not only are the women impacted, but the children who have to go to school, who don't have shelter and may not have the right proper clothing or food to eat to be able to function and get an education. So that's something a lot of times are overlooked is the children who I always say the family serve as well.
Do, do, um, do you have any solutions that you think will help, especially in the case of homeless women veteran being the fastest growing community of homeless? I even noticed recently they opened up a cold weather shelter for men. It specifically said for men. And I'm like, okay, so what are the women supposed to do? Does your organization, SheVetsIt, have any short-term or long-term goals that you are working on as far as women veterans and the needs of women veterans?
Right now, we start a foundation. So I have a board member and a team that's working on that specifically. We're still on the initial stage of that. However, with SheVetsIt, the podcast and the community, I pretty much just disseminate information, and maybe I know of organizations that their primary mission is to help women veterans. And for the last couple of years, I've been working with Final Salute, and I know they are really great with that initiative for homeless veterans, and not only that, but preventative. I think preventative programs. A lot of times, like you said, I've talked to legislators. I've talked to one of our Texas senator here about when they're putting together a plan. Sometimes they think when they're putting together a plan that's just for veterans, they think that it's just a cookie cutter program that fits all. It fits all. And so, yes, you can build a shelter. However, women, if they're single women who have no children, okay, she may be able to fit in a shelter for women. But if she has a son, a lot of times those women that have children, because when I called around in LA with that woman that was living in her car, when I called around shelters to see if they could help her, several of them said, yes, we can help her, but we can't help her. We can't house her son because he's a male and he's over, I think he was 10 or something. Because of his age, they weren't able to support her. So a lot of times the shelters might be available and there may be space, but they may not be able to accommodate her because of the gender of the child or the age of the children. So probably something more specialized for women versus just our male population, not to take away the needs that the male population may have as well.
Right, but because there's a issue period with housing the children with the veterans. Because I myself used to work at a transitional facility for veterans, and there was no space for children for either male or female veterans, and I found that to be a problem. And a lot of the ones that did have children that were in that shelter, their children ended up being in foster care, which seems like when people are sitting down at the table making these decisions to make these shelters, for some reason they don't factor in that veterans have children, or building more facilities that will house the children instead of having them go through foster care system, which is another trauma, and that could cause adverse adverse experiences for the child. So so what do you think your military experience has helped you with the advocacy for veterans, women veterans?
You know what? Well, it's so funny how I was shared earlier how everything that I'm doing prepared me for this was because my undergrad at Claremont College, my focus was organizational studies, and my emphasis was on advanced community studies. And so we did a lot of advocacy work. It could be immigration issues, different issues. I did not know that my work in the community at Claremont College would come in hand with the veteran community. Because, like I said, I had no idea that I would actually be doing this at all. This was, if you would have told me that I would be doing something with women veterans down the road, I would be like, you know what, whatever. Yes. But I wanted to add something because you were sharing about the children in the shelter. It here there is in Dallas there is a shelter where they do have it where there's a room where the whole family can stay in that particular room. I just don't think that there's a lot of facilities available. And so a lot of times women, like you were saying, women with children, they don't want their children taken away. So what happens is women will couch surf or they'll sleep in their car with their kids because they do not want to be reported. So a lot of times they won't even report that they're even homeless. So that's the issue right there.
Oh
Yes.
gosh, you just hit the head on the hand, the nail on the head, because that is true, and the numbers are underrated because of that. So I know I work for the VA in Los Angeles, and a lot of times when I'm sitting in these meetings, I get super frustrated because they'll say, we don't have the numbers to support doing something specifically for women. Well, if you did something specifically for women, the numbers will support it. So, and I had to actually bring them the law that says that's no longer an excuse. You have to do housing, or even like you said, that's a great idea that they have in Dallas, an open room for the entire family. Because a
Hmm.
mother wouldn't mind sharing her room and her space with her children, whether they're male or female. So that's
That.
great. So when you put a different alternative on the table and you
Mhm,
have people advocating like SheVetsIt,
mhm,
that makes it more reasonable and more people can see it. They can see the light at the end of the tunnel on
mhm.
how housing women veterans helps everyone.
Yes, can I share something? That the particular organization that's out in Dallas, I went on a tour because I was just curious of what they provided. And so they have an area for men and a different floor for women. And so you have to go through a background check. And here's the thing, they have to go through actually the VA to go through this particular program. So it is VA supported, at least for Dallas. And what I've heard too is that not all VAs are the same. So the experience in LA is different from Dallas, from Kansas City. They're not necessarily a cookie cutter, is from what I've heard. But this particular program, it's a large facility, and it, like you said, they have like a dorm room, and so they have different beds, and it helps keep the families together. And I just recently read something. It was either today or yesterday, and it was a mother. She was a single mom. Her 14-year-old child had to watch the other kids while she went to work because she didn't have a babysitter. Well, they found out, and she was arrested because they found out that the child was 14 years old and was not allowed to or old enough to be able to care for kids. So that is the issue. Is like, how do you do? Now she has another thing to worry about, getting arrested. Now, all these new added obstacles that come to play when you're thinking of a woman. And she was just a regular, a civilian, but, just the other obstacles that may come to play if you're a veteran.
Right. So how do you see the future for SheVetsIt?
Well, I would hope, what she vets it, I I say all hands on deck. I don't look at um, trying to do what everybody else is doing. However, I like what using this community is to share and disseminate information about resources that are out there. So if you have the final salute, if you have different organizations that's doing the work, because a lot of times we don't know what we don't know. A lot of times when you're in the military, those resources was right there. You're on base. Around the corner is the medical. Down the street, if you had fall into some financial issues, you can go to another organization. Different. There are so many resources on base, but when you get out the military, they're not there. You might have to go. I have to travel like 50. My doctor's 50 miles from here, so so there's so many different things. So I try to use SheVetsIt as a rally point to find resources, connect with organizations that are doing the work. I'm not the necessarily the problem solver, but I connect you with the problem solver. And I hope to be able to uh, be an added support to the women community, and also to be a organization or a movement that reminds people that women veterans serve as well.
All right. Well, we appreciate you. We thank you for your service, and we thank you for all that you do for the community. For more information, would you like to give your website information where they can go to find out more about SheVetsIt?
Definitely. You can always follow me on shevetsit.com. I'm on all social media platforms. If you want to know who I'm having coming up next on the podcast, that would be you can go to Instagram. That's where I post what's coming up. We're on all Spotify, uh, Amazon, you name it. Anywhere you can find a podcast, that's where I'm at. So I just want to thank you so much for having me here, and thank you for allowing me to share my story and my journey.
You're welcome. That's what we do here at Stage Black. We share the stories of our service members, veterans, retirees, anyone who has, spent time in the military, their families, and anyone that supports it. And if you'd like to find out more about our show, you can visit our website, www.stageblack.org. And our email is info@stageblack.org.
And this is Stage Black. Always been here, not going anywhere. And we'll see you next month. Thank you.